Okay, everybody, welcome to today's session. Great to see you all here. Just like previous sessions that I've hosted, we're going to get things started at 2 minutes past the hour. So get settled in. I'm going to grab a drink of water if anybody needs to do the same. Now's a great time. And we will begin at 2 minutes past. So see you all very soon. Okay, it's 2 minutes past. So let's begin. Welcome, everybody. Great to have you all here. Welcome to all my grant writing friends. It's good to be on the call together today. So I can already tell there's a lot of people who've joined previous sessions with me. So I apologize if the first part of today's session will be a little bit repetitive, but it's also great to meet some new people, especially if you are really focusing in your career on writing grants. It's a very important part of any work of, a very important part of any nonprofit. And let's jump in. I guess I have a little agenda which I'll run through. We have 1 hour together today, 1 hour together next week as well. And this is what I am planning on covering in today's session. So we'll start with a quick round of intros. I'll introduce myself and I'll introduce the nonprofit program. I want to make sure that everybody on today's call knows how they can request a validation to join us on the nonprofit program. It's a very easy thing to do. And if you are eligible, you will receive free access to Monday.com, which is just incredible, worth many thousands of dollars every year. So I really hope that everyone's able to join us on our nonprofit program. And I do want to take a couple of minutes to explain how that is possible. And then we'll do a little round of intros with you folks. So it's cool to hear who we have on the call. And then we'll jump into talking about grant management itself. So we have already got a grant management template in the Monday Template Center. I'll show you, first of all, how you can download it, and then we'll take a look at it. I'll show you some of its features. I can ask any questions you have about it, and we can kind of work our way through a full grant cycle, adding a new grant, seeing what happens to it, working on it, and so on. I'll also show you how you can start to add some additional automations to this grant application process, improve them, make them more dynamic, and really make them work for you. And I'll also show you how you can communicate with your team members within Monday, which is also a big part of this kind of collaborative approach to working on grants as a small team. So I'll go first with a quick intro. Won't take a minute, but it is great to meet you if this is anyone's first time on a call with me. I am your nonprofit success manager. That's my job at Monday.com, is to help you get as much as possible out of this platform. I do my work at a super scalable way. We have currently 26 and a half thousand active nonprofits working on Monday.com every single month. So I'm doing a lot of these big trainings and providing resources, but I'm definitely here to help you get the most out of the role. I've been doing this for about 3.5 years, as it says. But before that, I was in and around nonprofits in many different roles. So I've seen both this incredible opportunities that nonprofits have. There's some amazing work being done, and I'm sure all of you are having incredible impact in your own ways in your own communities. But I've also seen how challenging it can be to get there, right? I know from experience, probably many of you are wearing many hats. Maybe you're writing grants, but you're also trying to build relationships with individual donors or manage volunteers or launch new projects. You're very unlikely to be doing one specific thing. Probably you're not doing it with enough resources or time or any of those other important factors. So what I hope is that we can help make your days a little bit easier. I'm sure there are a lot of pain points people have around managing grants. So it's my job to help you overcome as many of those as possible. And a fun fact about me, I'm a proud dad, 2 under 3, 2 under 2.5 really. So that keeps me very busy when I'm not leading these sessions. Okay, much more interesting than me is what Monday.com can offer you. And like I said, many of you will have already seen this part, or maybe you already applied to join the nonprofit program, which is amazing. But I do want to spend a couple of minutes on this just to make absolutely sure that everybody out there knows about the nonprofit program and is able to apply and join. So Monday.com/nonprofits is really all you need to remember. It's a two-step process to join the nonprofit program, and I'm pretty sure that everybody here has already completed step one, maybe already step two as well. That one I'm not so sure about. Step one is to open an account. Opening an account with Monday.com is very easy, takes just a few minutes, and everybody, whether you're a nonprofit or a big multinational corporation, gets a 2-week free trial. After 2 weeks is up, most people have to pick a paid plan. There's half a dozen different tiers where you can choose, what you want to receive, how much you're prepared to spend, and that's where most people have to, get out their credit cards. If, however, you are a nonprofit, you can visit this page here, monday.com/nonprofits/eligibility, and you can check out our eligibility criteria. You do need to be a registered nonprofit organization, or there's a few other definitions somewhere in the world. There are a few other eligibility criteria which you can read here. But generally speaking, if you're not even 100% sure you're eligible, that's okay. My advice is to apply. There's no harm in applying. It's very fast. It takes just a few minutes. It's a very painless process. We have a huge database of nonprofits, and chances are most likely you'll already appear on that database. So you just need to confirm who you are. You're officially working at that nonprofit. And then we need to know what your nonprofit, or rather what your account is, your Monday.com account, that you would like to have joined the nonprofit program. That does sometimes trip a few people up. You can see here my account. So my account is everything before .monday.com, right? This section here is the name of my account. And that's what I would put into the application if I was applying. And the application, super fast, a couple of minutes, you'll be done. And if you're an eligible nonprofit, the changes can be made behind the scenes, whether you're on the nonprofit program, whether you are on the free trial, whether your trial's expired, whether you've already started paying because you didn't know about the nonprofit program. It really doesn't matter. Whatever you've got, we can move you on to the nonprofit program, and you will receive 10 seats for free at the pro tier, which is the second best of all of the tiers. If you're a bigger organization, you get a nice discount off extra seats. And if you want to upgrade to the only level higher than pro, which is enterprise, you also get a nice discount on that. The other cool little bit of bonus information, it does sound a bit like an infomercial, but wait, there's more, is that when we created the nonprofit plan, we only had one product. Monday.com made Monday.com. That was it. Now there are 4 core products, and you actually get access for free to all of them. What we're going to be working on today is Monday's CRM. Now you have access for free to the CRM. You in fact get 10 seats on each of the products, and theoretically, they could even be different people if you wanted them to be. I'll show you in a moment how you can switch between the products and that kind of thing. Monday CRM as a product was really designed for salespeople, but it's perfect when it comes to managing anything to do with people of any kind, really, whether they are beneficiaries or volunteers or donors, or what we'll see today, the providers of grants. There's some really cool CRM specific features which most users have to pay for, but on the nonprofit plan, you get access for free. So I'll point some of those features out. If you are working on your grants on Monday's work management, that's also okay. It's not a big difference. And I'll show you again the pros and cons and how you can move stuff between boards and all that kind of stuff. So stay tuned for that. Fabulous. So that's all I wanted to show you in terms of intros from my side. And there are some questions coming in the chat, which I'm happy to answer. Someone asked me if this session is being recorded. Happy to say that yes, it is, and it will be sent to you after we're done here. I do that with all of my sessions. And Deanna asked if there are nonprofit office hours. How do you sign up? I promise that wasn't a planted question, but the answer is yes, there is. Just come to our resource center and you will see all the stuff we're offering for free. You can see, for example, our Nonprofit Academy, which you're on right now, but as well as the grants course, there are other topics you might be interested in. And right here, you'll see our full schedule of upcoming events, including the Academy, including webinars, and including office hours. If you wanted to drop in, ask a quick questions of a nonprofit expert, you can do that for free right here. So again, monday.com/nonprofits is where you'll find everything you need to know and a couple of cool resources here as well. Okay, so that's it for questions. And what I thought we could do now is a little kind of get to know you activity. I do find that the community building aspect of these sessions is really interesting. So rather than me writing a form, which I've done in the last couple of sessions, I thought we could do today is have you folks suggest the questions. Is there anything you would like to ask a bunch of 30 or 40 nonprofit professionals who have an interest in grant writing? Maybe it's something funny and something frivolous, or maybe it's something professional that you want to kind of understand how other people are working. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask people, put them in the chat now. And what we can do is just build a very quick little form over here in my Monday account. We won't spend too long on this, so just a couple of questions I'll choose. But I think it's quite fun to see who else is on the call, and we can kind of demonstrate some good Monday features as we go along. So what I'll do is, okay, amazing. People are already starting to ask questions, which is brilliant. What I'm going to do is click on the plus here and add a new form. And when I add a new form, I can build it out from scratch, or I can have AI build something for me. I think what I'm going to do this time is start from scratch and build out a form myself using the questions that you've supplied. So I'll click here on edit form to begin with, and you can see what our options are. I can add a logo, for example, upload a logo here. If you've got a logo of your own, you can upload from your computer. You can then add titles and all this kind of stuff in this section. So let's call our form, oops, need to go back to edit. Let's call our form Get to Know You Grants Academy. And the first question is a name question. I'm going to just ask, what is your name? Very simple. This is a plain text question, and the answers people give here are going to go directly into our main table. Every question we add on the form is going to correlate to a table column over there in the other tab. So for example, if I click on this plus here and add a question like Emily asked, I like this question, what is the number of grants you apply for on a yearly basis? So I could choose maybe just a number, and then people can enter in the number, or what might, you know what, let's do number. Let's do number for now. I'll use that, a different example for what I was going to show there. So here people will only be able to enter in a numeric value. So I can say, just copy and paste Emily's question into here. What is the number of grants you apply for on a yearly basis? Great question. If you are asking questions like this, which have a numeric value, we can start to plot them on graphs and charts. And I think you'll see in a moment that it's quite cool. Okay, let me see what else we have here that will be useful. I'm also really looking for questions that will highlight Monday features. So I apologize if I don't pick everybody's question. Let's take a question here like Simone's one, which is, are you the grant writer and executive director? So let's use here the multi-select option. This is going to allow people to choose more than one, if they want to, pre-selected values. So I can ask the question, are you the ... grant writer, executive director? And I can remove this third option. Okay, so because I've chosen a multi-choice question, people can pick either this one or this one. You know what, actually we can also add another option for other. So if somebody's neither of those things, they can choose other. What I can then do, I add another question down here, is add a short text question. The short text question can then be a conditional question, right? I click on the logic button here, and I'm now going to say I only want to show this question to folks if the answer to the previous question was other. So here I can say, what is your role? Pretty neat, no? You may, by the way, be thinking at this point, what has this got to do with grant writing? And I mean, on the one hand, you're right. These forms are not specifically going to be used in the grant writing suggestion, but you can get very creative with using these forms for your nonprofit. These forms are free and unlimited. There is one cool use case for these. I know a lot of people have volunteers who are helping them write their grant applications and helping them find new grants. So, for example, you've got a team of people who are out there, maybe volunteers, helping you work to find new grants. You can give them access to a form like this. You then don't need to give them access to everything going on in your Monday account. And they can have a form that will allow them to submit suggestions of new grants that they found directly to your Monday board. So it's a very cool way of using forms to help you find new grants, for example. Okay, this is a cool one from Claudia. How are you doing? Now, if you could name one resource that has been most beneficial in your grant process, what would that resource be? So here I'm going to add just a short text question and allow people to write in free text. Now, the only reason that I have skipped over a couple of your questions is because they do revolve around short text answers. And when you give people the option to write anything they want to, it just becomes very difficult to kind of pull insights out of it, to collate it, and so on. So I've kind of tended towards questions like this, where we're going to be able to do things with the answers afterwards. And that's probably a good tip in general, but of course, not everything can be answered and prepared options that we've provided. So there are always going to be places for plain text questions like that. All right, let's leave it at that for now. I do apologize if your question isn't going to be added here. If anybody wants to answer questions in the chat, that's of course fine. And yes, to answer your question, Katie, no, you do not need to be a user to answer the form. That's what makes these forms so special. What I'm going to do now is click on the Share Form button. And there's a couple of different ways that you can share this form, but none of them require people to be a Monday user. So for example, I can copy this link. In fact, let's make it a bit shorter. And I'm going to put this link in the chat now. I'm also going to get on screen a QR code. So if you want to whip out your phone and scan this QR code now, you will see the form as we just built it, okay? And whether you scan the QR code or whether you click the link, your answers will stream into the board the same way, and then we can start to, look at them and analyze them as they've come in. You can also share these forms directly through social media. You can also embed these forms directly in your website, which is quite cool. And that way, if somebody lands on a, contact me page in your website, they will actually see the form right there. It doesn't take them away to a Monday page. They're just in your website, working there. Once they filled out the form, they can continue browsing or visit your, donate here page or something like that. So the embed option is quite cool. That lives also just here in the drop-down triangle where it says here embed. There are also other features with forms. I'm skipping over this because this isn't our main focus, but in the design and in the settings, there's a lot of cool extra features. So just a couple that I'll highlight. Here you have the option of putting in a website, for example, yours, and it will then pull out the design style, the color, the font, any logos from your page and put them into your form using AI. It's pretty awesome. In the settings feature, you have the ability to control who can fill out your form, how many times they can submit answers, which answers can be submitted, and so on. So there's a lot of powerful extra features you can play with in here as well. All right, let's go and take a look at our main table now. We can see the answers as they've come in. Amazing. Got some cool stuff happening here. So a pretty good spread of roles so far. I'll just make these columns a bit bigger so people can see them. This was, of course, the question, one resource that's been most beneficial. Okay, this is maybe a good thing I can demonstrate. Here I can rename this column, for example, beneficial resource. Okay, that hasn't changed the column, hasn't changed the name of my question over here, but it does still connect, right? One of your more question titles out of sync with the board columns. Would you like to sync them? You can if you want to, but you don't need to. So I can keep this as having a different name from the column on my board. But it is still the same place, basically. All right, fabulous. So let's now take a look at what we can do with some of these answers. All right, if I click on the plus up here, I can add a chart. And it's automatically displaying here some information. Now, this is not the most helpful. What it's trying to do is display that question about how many grants people apply for. And it's taken a decent shot at it, but it's not perfect because what it's got over here in the y-axis is a count of the items. So this is showing how many people answered 5, 12, 50, 75. 2 people answered these ones, and that's why the bars are higher. But what we can do is very easily come to the 3 dots in settings and change the way the graph is built. And this is a good exercise because whether you're doing a survey of people before a webinar or trying to understand how much money you've raised from your grants or how many grants you've applied to and been successful for or whatever it is, you can build out these charts in your reports to get those kind of insights. So first of all, we'll start on the top and work our way down. You can pick any chart type that you want here, right? Maybe that's easier to understand. I think a bar chart is perfect for this one, so let's stick with that. And then in the x-axis, I'm not going to have what is the number of grants you apply for on a yearly basis. Down below here, we're going to have what is your nonprofit. Right? I want a name of all of the organizations along the bottom side. And in the y-axis, that's where I'm going to ask this numeric question. It's currently just counting how many responses have come from each of these organizations, which is why it's 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. But what I want to see is how many grants each of these orgs are applying to each year. In fact, now we've got both of them displayed together. Let's just remove that and have only one. So now we can see the scale of grant application sizes we have on the call today, right? Harbour Care applying to 75 in a year. That's amazing stuff. What's that? Almost one every 3 days, 3 or 4 days. Very cool. Great Cows 20, bit of a cluster in this kind of middle group. Then we've got a few smaller organizations down here as well. So you can see a real range. But isn't that neat to be able to see that really clearly and instantly? We can then change the name of this chart to number of grants applied to per year. Now I can also add customizations here. I can change the coloring, right? If I wanted to give every one of these pillars a different color, I can do so very easily like this. And so on and so on. You can also change the way they're organized. Maybe you want to add a benchmark line. So, you know, you can say something like this. Targets. Okay, this, of course, isn't a real target. Some orgs are smaller than others. It's not a problem if you're applying for more or less, but just wanted to give you an example of what you can do with these benchmark lines. We can add more of these, right? We could add another one here. If you want to, something like this. So these lines are very easy to add, and you can then really get into the insights of what you're trying to show, the story you're trying to tell. And when you are applying to grants, the kind of people who love this stuff are the foundations who want to see the work you're doing. So although we're just having a bit of fun today building this chart, you can hopefully imagine what's possible with these kind of graphs and widgets. They can then be exported to people. You can take this out as an image, or you can invite someone into your Monday account if you want to, and they can really start to understand the impact you're having thanks to these charts, which is really cool. Okay, you know what? Let's add just one more of these to answer that other question. People asked about people's roles. Here I want to change this to a pie chart, I think. And I don't want to ask the question, what is the number of grants? Instead, we're going to go for this question, which was your role. So here we can see a pretty even split actually between executive directors, grant writers, and people in other roles. And if you want to see what those other roles are, you can simply click on that, drill into it, and now we can see all the other answers. Operations manager, board secretary, parent connection coordinator, embedded software analyst, and the director. post-award grants management. You can see everyone's kind of drilled down roles by clicking on it. We can make that bigger, of course, as well. So that is the connection between a board, a form, and the charts. I hope that was, first of all, interesting just to see what kind of organizations we have on the call. If anybody wants to connect in the chat with other organizations who are doing similar things that you're doing, that's awesome. You know, if you have a goal of applying to more grants, for example, that's not everyone's goal, I know, but maybe you want to reach out to those bigger organizations, that's perfectly fine. And I also wanted to give a quick shout out to our online user community. We have 3,500 organizations available to reach out to and connect with in our Facebook group. So yeah, if you want to do more of this stuff, you can definitely take a look. Okay, one more question's come in here before we move on to talk about grants from Katie. Are AI features marked as such, or is it built into all aspects of the platform? So AI is increasingly present in Monday, but yes, it's very clear when you're using AI, right? There are AI columns, but you should see quite quickly, if you come down here to add AI columns, which ones the AI columns are, right? If I search for AI, it's pretty clear that these ones here are all labeled as AI. So, you know, you're not going to be forced to use AI if you don't want to or something like that. Here are the 4 AI products which you can access over here on the left-hand side. So yeah, there are many cool AI features, but all of them will be labeled for you and clear when you're about to use. Okay, Kathy has a good question as well. Super lost. You're not an idiot, I'm sure. You're okay. If you have specific questions about your actual plan and your access and stuff, you're welcome to reach out to me by email or simply speak to our support team. You know, they're perfectly placed to be able to help you with those kind of more account issues, or if you do have basic questions about the platform. If anybody needs a bit more support, you can come up here to the little question mark and click on support and learn. We've got articles and videos, but my favorite feature is this chat with us button, where you can speak either to an AI powered agent or a human. Just ask to speak to a human any time of day or night. Hey, I'm not sure what plan I'm on. Hey, I can't figure out how to add this type of column. They can help you out 24 hours a day. It's a free service, even for nonprofits. So you're welcome to reach out to me. I'll always try and help if I can. But that's also a really great resource to take advantage of. So yeah, if you are struggling with anything at all, that's always a good place to go. All right, my friends. So let's shift track and take a look now at managing grants. And as I said, what I recommend we do to manage our grants is to download the grant management template. The template lives here in the template center. So I clicked on the plus, came down here to template center, and you will see dozens and dozens of great templates. And I want to stress that all of these templates that you see down here on the left are available to you for free. Even though you're a nonprofit, you don't get any reduction in quality of your access, right? You have pro features just like anybody else. So if you are also managing projects, take a look at the project management templates, right? Some of them you'll see are AI powered. You can play around with those. There's also some that aren't. Totally up to you. And we, of course, do have a nonprofit category, and it's here that you will find the grants management template. This is the one we're going to be using in the course, and you are all invited to download this as well. I'm just going to turn on a light here. Excuse me. It's better. While this downloads, it's just preparing everything into my account. You can see it's added, first of all, a folder, and then these 4 other elements within that folder kind of packaged up together. So what I thought we'd do is take a very kind of quick bird's eye view across the whole solution, and then we can drill down into the specifics of adding a grant into our pipeline after we've done that. So high level, first of all, we have 2 boards. Okay, these 2 icons show that it's a board. And the first one is our pipeline. This is where you're going to be adding your grants that you're considering applying to, where you're going to do the work of delegating the tasks and writing the application and communicating as a team and initially, deciding whether you're going to apply for the grant at all and then submitting it. And the second board down is where we have our grant providers. And the two boards are connected. So you can show which grant that you're applying to is offered by which organization or foundation. Here you can add, contact information about maybe someone who works at the organization. That's a really cool way to be able to build up a rapport with the foundations that you're working with. If you're able to find a contact person and invite them to events and streamline your communication, that will certainly help your grant application chances in the future. And then we have a grants dashboard. And some of those charts and widgets that we saw earlier on, those graphs, this will be a great place to add those. So what a dashboard is that's different to what we had in our form is that this chart that we added there is only going to look at items in this specific board. The beautiful thing about a dashboard is that it can be connected to more than one board at a time. And once you've pulled in answers from multiple places, you can get really decent insights into what's going on in your organization. At the moment, this dashboard is connected to just one board. It's connected to the grants pipeline. Maybe what we can take a look at next week is building some more robust reporting. Maybe you want to also connect it to other places where you're doing fundraising to see what's going on overall, or to track your project's progress. But yeah, you can easily connect more boards, and then you can add up to 30 widgets to a dashboard to understand what's going on down in those lower level boards. And then the final element of this template is a doc, a getting started doc. This is a doc that we've built. We've packed it full of articles and videos, step-by-step guide to basically getting the most out of the platform. So you can use it how you want to. A lot of this stuff I'm going to be covering in the course, but if you do find you have questions about, importing grant data, you can come here and watch a video that my colleague has recorded, and I'm sure find out how best to do things. By the way, docs are really, really helpful. You can use docs to, for example, write grants, and I'll show you that feature in a second. Docs, dashboards, boards, forms, these are all features which are free and unlimited to you on the nonprofit program. So you can really have a lot of fun with these things, and recommend you enjoy them as much as possible. Okay, so let's maybe begin now by actually adding a new grant. Let's imagine that you've been trawling the web, or maybe you've got a team of volunteers out there who are helping you, and you found a grant that you think might be interesting for your organization. So I'm going to add this grant in here. Type in the name of the grant, which is the Environmental Protection Grant of Summer 2026. Right? That's the name of the grant that I'm interested in maybe applying for. Now, I haven't created the item yet, but as soon as I press enter, I'm going to do it in a second, I want you all to pay attention, because a couple of automations are going to be triggered by this item being created. You can see up here, the little icon of the robot where it says automate. There are 3 automations already turned on in this board, just waiting for a new item to be created. So watch what happens when I push enter. A new item has been created here. Its status should now automatically change to new. There we go. And 1, 2, 3 sub items were automatically created. Now you can change these automations, you can add to them, whatever you need to do, completely fine. But these have already been built in for you, so you don't need to do any of the heavy lifting. Here, the status is set to new. If you wanted to change that, we can edit these labels, okay? We could call this one, for example, pending. If you want to decide as a team first whether you're going to apply, that's completely fine. And if you wanted to delete some of these labels, you can deactivate or delete them to your heart's content. You can add more labels as well if you need to. When it comes to the sub items, you can see it's created for me here 3 tasks within the main task at the top. This is, at least in its design, where you can add things you need to do in order to actually apply for this grant. So if you have a lot of repetitive tasks that you're probably going to be doing every single time, you can add them right into the automation. And then as soon as you add a new grant, it'll automatically populate. First of all, we'll add some of these tasks ourselves. So draft a letter of intent. Okay. We might also need to prepare financial report. And we also need to, an obvious one, but we do need to do that. That is a part of the application process, so we can mark that there. And what I love about these sub-items is it means that we can break down what can be a pretty daunting task applying to this, monster grant by giving us these smaller subtasks. It also means that I can, for example, be the overall owner of the grant, right? The buck stops with me. The bottom line is I need to apply for this grant by the end of summer. Okay, 31st of August, that's our deadline. We're asking for a hefty sum, okay? It's a big grant for us, $100,000. But I can break down these smaller tasks and allocate them to my team members. So the letter of intent, for example, that's going to be given to Sarah. Sarah is our grant writer. Maybe she's our, best author or our native speaker. She's the perfect person to take this task. And her deadline is going to be earlier than the August 31st deadline, right? I don't want that to be hanging over us. I want that by the end of the month, let's say. Then we have a file column. And the file column is really useful for things like writing letters of intent. If Sarah has her own way of working, and God knows, we all know people who like to work in a certain way and refuse to change their habits. In Monday.com, that's actually okay. Because if Sarah just has a way of working, she works on her computer and she wants to upload a hard copy, look, it's not ideal from a data integrity point of view, but it works from a technical point of view. She can do it that way. She can upload her own files. If she's got a bunch of files in the cloud, Google Drive or Dropbox or any of these other ones, she can still work over there and just provide a link here to that file. We'll be able to see the most up-to-date version at any time. The best way, kind of the optimal way of working though, is to use Monday Docs. And we saw Monday Docs very briefly earlier on. I can click here and the doc then will actually live here in the file column. And the best thing about this is that it's never going to be lost, right? We don't have that issue of, I created it somewhere, but where did I save it? Because this is where I'm managing my grants and it's so clear this is where it's going to be. Anyone can access it if they need it. And Sarah's work can be collaborative and we can all kind of help her out on this. Now, if you've already got an existing doc that you want to use, you can do. You can also save, for example, a letter of intent template, right? If you're applying to a lot of grants for the same project, you can write one, add it as a template, and then you can make changes to the individual application. We don't have that just yet, so I'm going to click here on New Doc, and I want to show you just how flexible Monday Docs can really be. You can really add anything you want here. Free text, you can embed stuff from other parts of your boards, tables, charts, and so on. They're all dynamic and live, so if something changes in your board, it'll change here. You can also embed stuff from the web. We can even build this whole thing with AI. Again, it's very clearly labeled here, and the AI isn't going to do, in my experience, a 100% perfect, ready-to-go job, but it does definitely help you when it comes to getting started. So let's say I'm applying to a sustainability foundation for a grant to fund a environmental project my nonprofit is hoping to fund. We're working on saving turtles in our local area. Please draft for me a letter of intent. This grant. Okay, that's not the perfect prompt, but let's see what the AI makes of it. And of course, we get to review it and make our own changes. This is just helping us out. And it definitely does give us some good ideas and takes away that early burden of like, where do we get started? Okay, so we can put in our information, like it, then a little introduction, put in a bunch of cute emojis. Okay, cool. Project overview, collaboration, the funding request, timeline, conclusion. Not bad, right? I mean, this definitely still requires a grant writer to come in and clean it up and fix it. But this is a pretty good start. I really like that. Now, what we can also do here is we can communicate with our team members. So this is Sarah's job, but I can also communicate with other people. So I could say, for example, collaboration and community involvement. Okay, I can add in here tag to my colleague Laura, and I can say, can you please add here the photos you took of our beach clean up with the kids last month. Okay, Laura knows exactly what she's been asked to do. It's very clear. Her being tagged here, again, by typing the @ key, means that she's going to receive a notification within Monday. Hey, somebody's tagged you. She can then go and add her element there. We're all working together, collaborating, communicating. It's a very efficient way of working. It also means that if Sarah gets sick or moves to a new organization or retires, she's not taking that institutional knowledge with her, because we can see here previous examples that she's done and we can all communicate across that together. So yeah, Monday Docs, really nice addition. That's a very good way of working down here. Similarly, we could also tag someone else to our financial report. Maybe Iran is our finances guy, and I want this by, I don't know, the end of the next month. He can also add a file. And then again, I'm in charge of this, so maybe I'll be the one in charge of working on ensuring this is done by, when do we say? August 31st, like so. Now we can also mark this one as working on it, because we know Sarah's already begun working here. So those are just 3 quick examples. You can go on adding more sub items after the automation is kicked in. And if you find that you are doing a lot of these things again and again and again, you can actually build that into the automation itself. So up here, we have the 3 automations that are already active on this board. We saw 2 of them already in action. We saw this one. When an item is created, and only if the item is in the group active grants, set the status to pending, right? We saw that action take place. We also saw this one. You can click on it to get a bit more detail. It was triggered by when an item was created. And you can see that happened once in its life so far, a few minutes ago. And then the action was to create 3 sub items. Now we can add conditions. We can add extra actions if we want to. But if we click on the word sub item, we can even change how these sub items look right from the word go. So if I'm almost always going to be doing things like drafting a letter of intent, I can add that in at this point, saving me even more time. If Sarah is always going to be the one in charge of that task, let's assign her that in advance. What else do we have there? Which was the prepare financial report, which was Iran. And then this one may change. The owner might be someone different each time. Submit the grant itself, right? And you can add, if you were to add extra columns in your board, they would appear here as well. Everything is almost completely customizable. So now that I've updated this automation, if I do that action, the trigger when an item is created, let's see what happens. Let's add just another quick grant. And you should see, not only does the status change to pending, we should see 3 sub items being created, and they should already have the owner and the name as we chose in the previous automation. Pretty cool, no? Like all that time you're going to be saving. I love it. So basically, add in there to the automation as many sub items as you think you're likely to need for each of the tasks. And then if there is a grant where you don't need a financial report, you can always just delete that item. It's not a problem. Amazing. Now, some other changes that we might want to make to this board, because it's a nice board, but it's very simple, is that we might want to add, for example, a few extra elements. I would suggest, for example, 2 groups. It's just not really enough. Active and submitted. I would suggest we probably want to have at least 2 new groups. I would say grants awarded, and I would say grants we didn't win, grants declined. Would also be very helpful. You can also change the color of these. I know it's also a bit trivial, but I think it does help. You're looking at the sort of traffic light system. This would be green. The awarded grants, sorry, the submitted grants would be kind of orange, like the traffic light system, and declined would be red. We could then move these awarded grants into this group. And we can do that one by one, or we can batch select and come down here to move. We can move up to 500 items at a time if we want to. We could also add an automation to do that. But to me, this makes a lot more sense now that it's structured in this way. The automation could look something like this. Very simple automation, but the trigger would be when the status changes, move the item to the group. When we click on the word status, we are defining which status column we're talking about. And we do have 2. We also have a sub-item status column, but we want this one. When it changes to awarded, move the item to the group awarded. You could add another one for submitted, another one for declined, and so on and so on. I won't do all of those, but you can see how easy it is to add your own automations. And you can keep on going here, adding more and more automations. On the nonprofit program, you are limited how many automations you can use, but that limit is 25,000 every month. So, you can have a lot of fun with these. And I always look forward to the day when a nonprofit comes to me and says, Alex, we've used 24,999 automations. What are we going to do? That would be a good day. So basically, you can go pretty wild with this. All right. So the next thing to look at would be the grant providers. If I click in this button here, I see a little snapshot of that second board, the grant providers board, and all the organizations that I've already added there. Now, if the grant that we're applying to here is provided by one of these orgs, great, we can just check the box next to its name. But if it's a new organization, we can either add a new item in that other board, or right here, I can add a new organization myself. So this may be provided by the Sustainability Foundation. Sustainability Foundation. That's the name of the foundation who's providing this grant. And I can connect the 2 items together just by checking the box. So now, if I'm working on the grant, I can see where the information is going to be going. Now, at the moment, the contact information, the phone number, the email, all the stuff that it's pulling from the other board is blank. And I can actually add that information either here, or I can return to that other board and add it there. It is the same information. So if you know somebody who works at this organization, like a Mr. John Smith, you can add in John's contact info here. Just like so. Now you may say, what's the point of this? Why would I bother? There's a couple of really nice benefits of doing this. For example, here you can see that organization name 3, we've actually applied to 2 grants from there. And having this connect board functionality means that if you are working on a new grant, let's say grant name 1, you can see that organization name 3 has been used in the past. So you could then go down to this grant and see, did we win it? Oh yeah, it's in the awarded group. What did we do last time? Let's replicate that success. And you can follow on from there. So I can click on these buttons, or I can use the filter to show, for example, only grants where certain conditions have been met, like where the grant provider is Organic 3. Now I'm seeing just the grants that came from that specific organization or foundation. I can also start to build relationships with the people we're applying to on a regular basis. And this is where working in Monday CRM really comes to the play. What I can do is click on the update section here of any of these organizations. Okay, let's use the new one we just started working with. And I can see a little summary of everything I need to know about the Sustainability Foundation. Here's the basic info. Here are all of the grants we've ever applied to from them and what their statuses are. And if I need to, I can add updates about this organization. So I can say, met these guys at a gala in Jan 2026. I have some interesting grants we could consider applying for. Okay, that's just leaving a note on this item, but it means that everything we are adding each time we work with them is going to be visible in one place. So for the example that we looked at previously of somebody who's applying to a grant from an organization we've been successful with in the past, they can come and see this communication internally that's living here. Even more than that, they can also see the communication that's happening externally as well. If we click on the Add Widget button here, it's just going to take a while. Actually, you know what? No, let's not do it this way. And I have a different option. Let's click on the Edit Layout button. Click on the plus here and add emails and activities. Emails and activities is a great feature that's only available on Monday CRM. If you're working in work management, you won't have access to this. So bring your board over to the CRM and you will. Again, most people are paying extra to have access to this, but on the nonprofit plan, you can have this included for free. Once you've added emails and activities, you can see that you've got the option now to send these people an email directly from within monday.com. So it's pulled John's email address from the board, and this is where I can write my email freely. I can also say things like, hi, contact, and it's going to plug in John's name here. Any of the fields I have on the board, which are dynamic, I can pull from. So I could say, we don't have so much information about John, I guess, but anything that we did have, we could pull in here. So, hi, John, we're considering applying to the upcoming grant. Do you have time for a chat about what you're looking for? Right, you could save something like this as a template, and every time you apply to a new grant, you could pull it in. Of course, you can then make custom changes and fixes and send an email from right here within Monday. I didn't need to leave to go to my email provider. I did that from this spot right here. You see that I've already synced up my Gmail accounts with Monday. But if it's your very first time, it requires just 1 second of work. You put in your username and password once and once only, and then they are synced, and you can send emails back and forth. You can also see that it's logged that email that was sent here in this thread. Because that's not a real email address, you can also see the reply. The reply was just the bounce back. But if there was a reply, a real one from John, it would also appear here. And that allows us to build that relationship, not only between me as an individual and John as an individual, but between anyone in our organization, because we can all see that communication and correspondence. If you want to invite John to something or bring him for a call, we can see that here together. And it's all made possible with emails and activities. It's super, super easy and fun to use. Okay, amazing. We've got a few minutes left, and I would love to try and answer everybody's questions today. So let's take a look at the chat, and I will see if I can help out with some of these questions. Amazing. I'm glad to hear, Claire, that you had good support from our CX team. That's the button that I mentioned earlier with the question mark. If you need anything, they can definitely help you out. So I'm really glad about that. From Brittany, is there the ability to add approval into the tasks, i.e. letter of intent is complete, but needs to be approved before moving to the next task? Absolutely. And yeah, Megan, that suggestion is excellent as well. Let's maybe see that in action. If we wanted to add an extra step here into our pipeline, what I could do is, why can I not click on that? There we go. Just my mouse sticking. I could add here another status. This may be the easiest way. I could say done, awaiting approval, awaiting approval. I could have another label for good old done. Or even done and approved. Okay, so once Sarah's finished her letter of intent, she marks it done awaiting approval. And we could then add here an automation. I think that's what Megan suggested, which says when the status of the sub items this time changes to done awaiting approval, then notify a certain person. The grant item name, or rather the letter of intent for the grant has been completed and is awaiting your approval. Like so. And then we can choose who it's going to notify, either a specific person, maybe again, you've got a manager who's always going to be the one approving these grants, or it could be dynamic, it could be whoever's attached in a person column. And we could have more than one of these person columns, right? The moment we've just got one that's called owner, maybe we have owner and approver. That's not a problem. We can have more than one of those columns. I could add here another person column. Call this approval by. And then this will be the manager, for example. So yeah, that's a great question and definitely something we can do really nicely on Monday. Okay, Claudia, what is the best way to import a spreadsheet of tentative grants to avoid manually entering each one? Love that. So you can import grants up here, right? I clicked on the little drop-down triangle and came to import grants. This would imply that you've got a spreadsheet somewhere of grants you want to bring in. If that's the case, amazing. It's super easy. Just drag and drop either a CSV or Excel file here, and then you just need to map the columns. Tell the system what to do with each of the columns in your spreadsheet. Like if you've got a spreadsheet already which has a column called grant name, we'll tell it to put that information in the column here called grant. And you can just map every column and boom, they will appear here. If you're looking for something a bit more sophisticated, for example, something that we are building internally right now as we speak, I've got a colleague working on this at the moment. He's building an AI tool which will integrate with Monday. So it's going to search the web for grants. Now, Monday has an open API. So I'm yet to see a tool which does this really well. That's why we're building one. But feel free to go out there and find tools which can do other stuff for you. Build something of your own. You know, it's easier than ever before to build these kind of things. And you can, using Monday's App Store, build apps in the marketplace, or using AI internally, build stuff that can look for grants for you and even have them appear in this board for your very eyes. Our solution is coming soon. We're definitely excited about it, and you can expect an announcement, let's say in the next few weeks. It's hard to know exactly how long these things will take, but it is possible from a general sense to connect Monday to other places as well, right? We do integrate, like I said, through our open API. But yeah, if you've got grants already, the easiest way is just to come in here and import them using the importer. But yeah, there's some very cool stuff coming. Okay, Marion accidentally disconnected the grant providers board from the grants pipeline board. How do you reconnect? So you can always download the template again if you want to see how that's done, but I'm happy to show you how that would look. Basically, the connection between the two boards is a connect board column. So let's imagine that I didn't have the connection anymore, and I'm starting here with a new connect board column. I added that column, and now I can select which board or boards I want to connect to it. So because the grants providers board is the last board I used, it's the one that is suggested. So I can simply choose to connect that one. And then before I click on this button, which I know is very tempting, you need to decide if you want it to be a one or two-way connection. And this just means, am I going to see the connection in both places? Do I want to see pipeline is connected to the providers board, or do I also want to see that the providers board is connected to the pipeline? This is the way it's built in the template with a two-way connection, and that's usually what I'd recommend. So I checked the board that I wanted to connect, made it a two-way connection, and hit the Connect Boards button. Now it's asking me here if I want to add a mirror column. And the mirror column we're going to cover actually in next week's session. So you can play with that if you want to, but it's coming soon. That's all we have at this point. The grant providers board is connected through the Connect Board column and a two-way connection to the grants providers board. And then we can make those connections just by choosing which grants connect to which provider by checking the box. And because it's a two-way connection, you can do it in either direction. You can connect a provider to a grant or a grant to a provider, and it'll work just the same way. So hopefully, yeah, if you did disconnect it by mistake, you can rebuild it and reconnect it like so. All right, we are almost out of time, but there is one last question, comes from Claire, and it's a great question. Where is this CRM and how do you move things between them, which is something I promised I would tell you at the beginning and haven't yet shown. So up here in the top right, we have the 9 dots where you can switch between products. Currently, we have 4 CoreMonday.com products. You have 10 free seats on each of these products, and you can switch between them with the click of a button. One point to note here, it may say something like start 14-day free trial. You can safely ignore that message if you're on the nonprofit program. If you're on the nonprofit program, you have free access. The system just doesn't understand that you've got access for free and you don't need to pay. It sees that you've got access for free, so it's going to give you a free trial. But once those 2 weeks are done, you can continue having access. So you can switch between the products here. And if you want to move something from one product to another, that's really easy. You know, if you've started working on the grants board in work management and you want to bring it over into the CRM, just come to the 3 dots and you can then move it just as you would to a new folder or a new workspace to a new product. And click of a button, it'll move to the new product. As soon as it arrives in that new product, any of the product-specific features that are only available there will become available. So if you've moved something from work management where you didn't have access to emails and activities into the CRM, as soon as it's arrived, you will see here things like emails and activities. You can even send the email and then move it back if you want to. It's really not a problem. So yeah, that's a great question. I'm very happy to provide a bit of clarity on that because I know it is a bit confusing. All right, my friends. Well, thank you very much for, one more question there. Is that a copy or a move? What I did there was to move it. But of course, you can duplicate it and then move it if you prefer to move a copy. But yes, this one, move to, is moving the actual board itself. Fabulous. So my friends, thank you so much for joining today's session. I hope that was helpful and interesting. We are going to meet again next week for part 2 in our grant management session. There, what I want to do is a few more complicated things, like showing how we can build more complex reports. And what I also want to show you is what happens after the grant has been won, because this solution does a great job of the initial application work. But we all know that once the grant has been won, sometimes that's the beginning of the hard part of the job. You can get bogged down with the compliance and the reporting and all that kind of stuff. So next week, we'll take a look at that, how you can actually allocate the funds that you've won to those projects and how we can track budgets. There's a lot of really good content next week. I hope you can all join me. We'll use the same Zoom link. We'll use, same time, same day of the week, just 1 week from now. So have a great week. Play with the solution a bit in between times and bring me any questions that you have next week. And yeah, looking forward to seeing you for part 2. Bye, everybody. All the best.